My name is Ed Tyson, and I'm an educator, retired now, but I was a social studies teacher in high school. And then I became a high school guidance counselor, and then a principal of an elementary and middle school, and then an associate superintendent. And I finished my career, full-time career, as the superintendent of Kannapolis City Schools in Kannapolis, North Carolina. After retiring, I worked part-time as a clinical professor at UNC Charlotte, the Department of Education, and also did some consultants work with a company in North Carolina. And I'm glad to be here to talk about my school experience. As a student, perhaps I could start with that, if that's okay. And then particularly, I know you're interested in integration of the schools in Cabarrus County and Kannapolis and Concord. So I'll try to hit that quickly too. When I was a student in school, there were separate schools. The black students went to a set of schools, and the white students went to a set of schools. And I really never thought much about that, as I suspect many other white and black children thought. It was just the way life was. I grew up in a good place in Kannapolis. It was a large textile town, and it had a terrific YMCA that the mill had built with all kinds of facilities, Olympic-sized pool and bowling alleys, and even a library, 2 gymnasiums. It was a magnificent thing, and I thought everybody had that when they were growing up. But it was mainly for the mill workers and their families, their children. Only later did I think about the unfairness to the black students, or the black children of that community, and other communities throughout the South and the nation. Is there was no YMCA for them. And that was not right. But when I was growing up as a young kid, I didn't give that, I don't even remember that being a subject. It's just, that's the way the life was at that time. And so my graduating class was all white. And there was another school in Kannapolis called Carver, and it was an all-black that was named for George Washington Carver, I'm sure. I had some black friends, but not many, because I didn't live in the neighborhoods and didn't go to school with them, didn't go to the YMCA with them. So as most white children, I grew up pretty separate, though some contact. I guess my first exposure to integration came in a curious way, and this is a departure perhaps from school, but not entirely. When I was 10 years old, I came down with polio, infantile paralysis, and I was sent to a hospital in Greensboro, a polio hospital for children that had been put up just quickly because there was an epidemic in the early 50s, and in the late 40s and early 50s. And because it was a federal institution, it was completely desegregated. Well, in the South, that was pretty unusual. This was 1951, but completely desegregated. And I stayed for a year in a ward of probably about 30 beds, and a good portion of those were black children. And I learned to know black children, and I'd never known that before. And I found out they're just like me, just like everybody else. And you bond in a situation like that. You live with those people 24 hours a day. So the boys in the boys' ward knew each other well, and I respected and loved my black friends. So that was my first exposure, and in a way was a terrific thing in my background to give me some feel for what we should have all the time, and that's no differences, no problems with people, regardless, particularly around skin color. How silly. But so I came back here, returned to the white atmosphere, and then I started teaching at Mount Pleasant High School at a time, this was 1964, 65, that academic year, at a time when school desegregation was just occurring. But in the Mount Pleasant schools, there were very few black children who lived in the Mount Pleasant schools, which really made it tougher for them because they didn't have numbers. But I was very gratified with the way the integration went there. The black students were accepted, not all the white students, but by and large, and I think the faculty had an awful lot to do with that. We had some good faculty, people who believed in all people, and I think that was the key. And we had a very good principal, who would not tolerate any kind of discrimination. So I was lucky there. I had a good leader, I had some good role models, and I had my experience too. And we had also the faculty became integrated there too. So integration there at that high school went without a bad incident that I know of. And I think I would have known because it was a small high school, 500 to 600 students in grades 9 through 12. So, there was some standoffishness, and some fear, I'm sure, among some white students, some black students. But by and large, it went really well. I had heard some rumors that in the rural parts, particularly eastern parts of Cabarrus County, near Rowan County, there was Klan activity. And in fact, Granite Quarry, which is not very far from Cabarrus County, the northeastern corner, the northwestern corner, northeastern corner of Cabarrus County. Granite Quarry had been the home of the Grand Dragon, the Ku Klux Klan. And so there was an undercurrent, that you could feel occasionally, and you knew there were some students in school whose parents were likely Klan members, but very few, and I don't know of an incident, although I could sense a real resentment, but it never, to my knowledge, manifested itself in treatment of students. So as a teacher, I had a good experience, and I was proud to be a part of a staff that was there to serve all the kids, and we were going to make sure that black students were treated as well as white students. So that was a good beginning.